Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plots, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Ferns make a great houseplant, but they can be tricky to propagate. Today we'll learn how to do it. Also, daylilies are a flower bed favorite. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Kim Rucker. Ms. Kim is the cutting garden and greenhouse manager at the Dixon Gallery and Gardens. And Lucas Holman will be joining me later to talk about daylilies. You'll be talking about ferns, right?
Yes.
Okay. What exactly will you be doing?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, sure.
I'm going to do a fern propagation demonstration on how to get more ferns from your existing plants. Ferns are very ancient plants. They are vascular plants, so they do have roots and they do pull up their nutrients and water through a vascular system, which they're the first in the evolutionary chain that do that. Wow. But they do not have flowering parts or cones, so they're evolutionary less advanced. They do have two basic forms of the plant. You have the sporophyte, which is what you see out in the woods, and it's spore bearing, which is what sporophyte means. And then you have the gametophyte, which is in here, and if you can see, it's the little green mossy looking, it's not moss, but that is the gametophyte generation. Wow. And so in order to propagate these, you can either divide them by splitting them, wait till the crown splits, or some are have rhizomes, so you can split out the rhizomes. But what we're going to do is take the spores and propagate that way. So these are some immature spores on this plant. And the reason I know they're immature is because they're green. Okay. Generally, what you want to look for are either black or brown spores, and this usually is going to happen midsummer, late summer. Okay. So that's when you collect, and you can collect them and store them for a little while. What we do to collect them is you will cut off this piece, the frond, when it's ready, and then this is kind of what it looks like. It dries, and what you can do is take off the individual little leaflets or pinna, and I put them into an envelope and close it up and leave them in that way for a couple of days, and then I just kind of flick it like this, and the spores dry, the sori on the back, the little caps, dry out, and then they dehiss and the spores come out. And so what you will get down in the very bottom of the envelope, and it's very fine, which is good because they're windborne, and so in order in the wild in nature to get them, they have to hit the wind and then land in a spot that's optimal for the growing conditions. What we will do once you get your fern, labeling, if you want to know what they are, because on these my labels are gone. So what I've done here is just put a number 1 several places on here, and then I'll have notes that I take that have the actual name written down, maybe the date that I started them and possibly where I collected them, Dixon Gardens or whatever. So, and then what you're going to do, so you can use any kind of basically clear container that has a lid, and what we will use is a sterile mix, and I'm using seeding mix, which is just peat, ground very fine with a little bit of vermiculite in it. It is sterile though. You don't want to use garden soil unless you sterilize it. Right. You can do that by baking it in the oven, and I don't recommend it because it really stinks. It's easier just to go by seed mix. You can get it at any nursery, big box stores. And so you put just a thin layer down in the bottom like this, and then what you do, and it also has no fertilizer in it. You do not want to fertilize it.
No fertilizer.
So no fertilizer. And then you take, this is horticultural grade vermiculite. Okay. So you take a little bit of this, and vermiculite, one of the properties, and why we're using it, is because it retains moisture. So once the germination process of the spores starts, you don't want it to stop. Okay. And so what I do is just really sprinkle it to one side like that, so you kind of have half and half. So then what I'm going to do is you take distilled water again, because it's been sterilized basically. And I will moisten it. And this is good also for people to see, because once the water hits the vermiculite, it kind of jumps.
Right.
It's really kind of cool. So, but I'll just,
sure does.
yeah. You just kind of mist it a little bit. Once you get this going, you put the lid on, and you just can, you don't have to keep misting it unless it really dries out. But the lid on it, the condensation will just keep it moist.
So you don't
in
have to
it.
put that much water, just as long as it gets a little moisture.
Just a little moisture in there. And
that's
what
good.
I kind of do is make sure that you can kind of see where the
see it.
moisture is showing up, because it gets darker.
Okay.
So then what you do is you just take your little spores. I'm going to pull the other pieces out that have the sori on them. And then you will, basically, I'm going
look
to
at
take
that.
it and just drop it in there like this. And like I said, it's a very fine dust. And the only way you really know you got it is it's
Man, you
gone
can
out of
barely
your,
see
yeah,
that.
it's, also, if you're really wanting to keep certain species or cultivars separate, I suggest doing them one at a time, because they are very fine and they will blow. And I've done in the wind, and so you'll get cross-contamination.
Okay.
So do one set and then get rid of those, and then do your next ferns. So then you just put the lid on it, close it up like this, and put it in a window or a well-lit room. You want it warm, but you don't want direct sunlight on it.
Okay.
And what you should see, even within a short amount of time, are condensation droplets on top of on the lid, and then that's the way it stays moist.
Gotcha.
Okay. The next thing you need to do is go away on vacation for like 2 weeks, because at least before you check on it, because the first thing that people say is, "Oh, mine didn't work. I just came back and there's all this green stuff growing all over it." That's what
That's
you
it.
want. That's
Right,
what you
that's
want.
it.
So, like I showed you before, the green stuff there is the next stage of the plant. So this is the sporophyte. Those are the gametophytes, and it's actually this little flat heart-shaped disc. And then underneath are the gametes, the male and female.
Okay.
And they get together, and the next thing you know, you've got little ferns like this. So the next thing you would do is to move them up. And I usually just, because they're still so small, I would just move them again into
Right.
germinating mix. I don't usually put plants that I'm gonna put out in the garden in perlite, in a mix that has
Sure.
perlite. And then once that grows on and you've got your plant is more established, then I would maybe put it in a bark-based mix and grow it on a little bit before you plant it. But you do have to be patient, like I said, because these were
weeks.
started about a year ago.
Wow.
So it takes about a year to get them to this point. And it's different for different ferns, but that's your basic. Once you get them up like this, you can start slowly, you can take the lid off to check them, and then you can kind of pull the lid like this. You want to gradually expose the new little fern to dry air.
Okay, I
So
got
you may need to pull the lid off and then mist it a little bit, and then gradually, maybe over
Open
a
it
week
up
to
a
2
little bit
weeks,
more.
you can open it up more, and it gets used to being out in the bright sunlight.
Okay.
But that's fern propagation.
That's fern propagation.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. We
You're
appreciate that
welcome.
demonstration. All right.
Let's talk a little bit about Virginia creeper. Virginia creeper is a native perennial woody vine. It has 5 leaflets. 5 leaflets, not 3. If it had 3 leaflets, it would be poison ivy. So again, this has 5 leaflets, Virginia creeper. It has beautiful fall foliage, as you can well see. It has little adhesive discs on its tendrils, which allows it to stick to just about any surface. It will develop a fruit, and of course the birds and the wildlife enjoy the fruit. It grows in full sun and full shade. Can be used as a ground cover as well. But if you're having problem with Virginia creeper, here's what you do. Just mow it, pull it, get your weed eater out and just knock it out that way. No need to use any chemicals. So again, Virginia creeper, 5 leaflets, not 3. All right, Lucas, let's talk about a real man's plant, right?
That's exactly right.
Daylilies.
That's right. It's my favorite flower.
It's your favorite flower.
That's right.
And I actually have some at home, so I can't wait for this segment.
Yeah, you're a real man's man.
Real
man.
man's
That's
man,
right.
yeah. All right, we'll tell my wife that. Real man's man, how about that? All right, so let's talk about the major types. Let's start with that.
Right now, daylily hybrids, there's probably over 60,000 different hybrids.
60,000?
And people get lost trying to figure out which ones they want to grow because there's so many different colors and diversity in the daylily itself, because you have some that are double, some that are spider looking form, you have some that are miniature, and the list goes on and on. But there's two main distinct types. You have a diploid and a tetraploid, and a diploid daylily has 2 sets of chromosomes, and a tetraploid has 4 sets of chromosomes. So theoretically, if you're going to become a hybridizer, you're really concerned about that, because tetraploids only breed with tetraploids and diploids only breed with diploids. So a lot of people really aren't concerned with the tetraploid and diploid unless you're really going into hybridizing. But a lot of the tetraploid type daylilies are more showier, and diploids are more of the older ones, but there's still some beautiful diploids that people are still breeding with today.
All right, diploids and tetraploids.
That's right.
How about that? All right, so let's talk about proper planting.
All daylilies need full sun.
Full
so
sun.
what's full sun mean to you? How many hours?
6 or more.
Basically, 6 or more hours is what a daylily needs. And I see people put them in a lot of shade, and they don't bloom well. Daylilies will live in shade, but they just won't bloom enough. So we recommend 6 hours of full sun. Proper planting, most daylilies are pretty temperamental to, or not temperamental, excuse me, to soil. They're very tough, so we always call this the perfect perennial, because they're usually forgiving for wherever you put them in the landscape, whether it's really clay or really loose type soil or really sandy type soil. They do well in just about everything, so they're really forgiving of where we put them in the landscape.
Yeah, mine are actually in a spot where, the drainage is not the best.
Oh.
And they still actually do pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're great plants.
Yeah, they are good plants. All right, now let's talk about hybridizing though.
This is probably the one area that I'm so passionate about, because people always want to improve on things that are in the past. So one of my favorite things to do is see what hybridizers are doing today and see what seedlings they're coming up with. And it's really easy for people to do that today. But you need to determine whether it's a diploid or a tetraploid daylily to begin with. So for today's purposes, we're going to assume that all these are tetraploid daylilies and that they'll breed with each other. So the main thing is you have to make sure that you get out there before the bees and any other pollinators to pollinate that flower. Because all it takes is one pollen grain. So it's easiest to go through, and we'll say, I wanted to use this pollen, and I wanted to go down here to this yellow one with this red eye, and I wanted to actually cross these two. So I take the pollen from this one, and I actually go to the pistil of this one, and all I do is a little dab, and that's all it takes. And then I leave it alone. So the flower will actually close up. I don't know if you can see it right here. It'll close up, and within a few days, if it actually took, the flower will fall off and you'll see a little bitty seed pod start to form.
All right.
So it's really simple to do, and that's probably why there's 60,000 different cultivars on the market, because it's so simple to do that, because we're always trying to improve on the older daylilies.
Wow. So you mentioned seeds in the seed pod. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, luckily we were able to find a little bitty seed pod right here. So this is a fertile ovary basically producing the seeds. So theoretically, this one had been crossed with something else. So this is a seed pod. Once the seed pod gets large enough, it turns brown and it cracks open to reveal the black seeds. Once the seed pod cracks open, that means the seeds are ready. But all daylily seeds need to go through like a cold period, like a stratify. So a lot of people will put them in the refrigerator until springtime and plant those. But to get a bloom from a seed on a daylily in Tennessee takes about 2 years. This is for patient people.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about dividing. What are the ways to divide and when to divide?
It's easiest and it's best on the plant if you can divide it in the springtime.
spring,
If we go really late into the summertime, they're stressed out with drought stress, because in Tennessee, we have no clue when it's going to rain sometimes. And we can go 2 weeks every day with rain, and then we can go 8 weeks without rain. So sometimes we always tell people it's best to do it in the springtime, leave it alone in the fall time, and then just wait till the springtime till it comes up. So when the foliage gets about 3 or 4 inches tall, that's a great time to dig and divide in the springtime.
Okay, so how do you divide it though?
It's best, it's really forgiving also. This is another why. People will dig it up, and I've seen people just take a shovel and cut it down the center.
Oh, yeah?
But if you kind of bring up the plant and you shake off a lot of the soil, typically those plantlets, once it actually propagates itself, they'll kind of pull off on their own. And if you had a knife or I've seen people with different spades go through and cut them pretty easily, the clumps that way too. It's just like dividing any other perennial.
Sure, okay.
Yeah, kind of the same way, but they're pretty forgiving on that aspect also.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. We thank the daylilies for being so forgiving.
That's
How about
right.
that? That's pretty
And beautiful.
tough. And beautiful, all at the same time. All right, so let's talk about resources for more information about daylilies.
I'll tell you, the first one around the Memphis area is the Memphis
familiar with
Area
them.
Daylily Society. And I
Yes.
think you told me you spoke there recently.
I sure did.
And
I
that's
sure
a
did.
great group of
great
garden
group.
people. And they actually hosted our regional daylily meeting I believe it was last year. So we got to tour a lot of daylily gardens around Memphis and Mississippi, and it was just beautiful.
Wow.
Also, the American Hemerocallis Society is the national, basically the American Daylily Society. It's the national organization, and they put out a magazine called the Daylily Journal 4 times a year, and it's a fantastic magazine to show what's happening with daylilies all across the country. And I'm a member of the American Hemerocallis Society, so I'm always encouraging people to do that because it's a great organization to learn more about my favorite plant.
Your favorite plant.
My favorite plant.
So if people wanted more information about daylilies, could they call you?
They could call me directly at the office. They can email me. I'm pretty active on Twitter, and Instagram, Facebook, and so they can hit me up anywhere, and I'd love to chat dailies. But if they're around Memphis, I would look about the Memphis area daily site because they always have speakers come in and visit them. But look on the American Hemerocallis Society website also, and there's a lot of different hybridizers websites that you can go see what people are actually creating and the ways of daylilies today.
How did you learn that? Did somebody teach you that? Did you read about how to hybridize?
My
for
high
daylilies?
school biology teacher actually really kind of instilled this passion in me. He was a daylily and a hosta person, and when I was 16, because most 16-year-olds like daylilies, right?
All right.
He would always sell daylilies, and I would go, and he was breeding some, and he was from East Tennessee, a little town called Spring City. So I would always go over there and see what was blooming every day, because a daylily, the bloom only lasts 24 hours, thus the name daylily.
daylily, right.
So the Latin name is Hemerocallis, which is Greek for beauty and day. So it's kind of an older type name, so you can know that for Jeopardy when you go on
there you
Jeopardy
go.
someday. But I've always been fascinated since I was about 16, and now that I'm the old age of 34, I'm
okay.
still really
Old
passionate
age.
about them because I always love all the different hybrids
Sure.
and see what people are coming up with today.
All right, well, we're glad you brought that passion today for sure. Well, look, Lucas, we appreciate that. Good information about daylilies.
Thank you.
Man's.
That's right.
No,
A man's. That's right.
That's right. All right, thank you much.
Appreciate
All
it.
right. It is time to clean up the garden for the winter. So we're going to start here with our peppers. Take these cages out here. All right, get them out of the ground there. Okay. And the peppers actually did pretty good for us this year. There we go. Now we're going to start pulling them out of the ground here. All right, got them there. Pretty good root system there. And they came out pretty easily. This one's a big one. All right, and here's our jalapenos. All right. Now, I'm not going to throw these in the compost pile because these are diseased and they have mealybugs. So we definitely don't want to put these in our compost pile. So that's how you get started cleaning out your garden. You always want to do that for the winter because you don't want to leave down any crop residue because a lot of your pests and a lot of your fungal diseases actually overwinters in crop debris. All right, here's our Q&A session. Y'all ready for these questions? Yes. They're real good questions. All right, here's our first viewer email. Help! I have yellow aphids on 2 Schwann milkweed plants. Each day for the past 3 days, I have hosed them off, but they come back. How many days will I have to hose off the aphids before they give up? It takes 10 minutes and I get covered with water too. Maybe I should give up and cut off most of the stems and just leave 1 or 2. Any suggestions? Never lost for words, Melbourne, Australia.
Wow.
All right, so they have problems with
They have
aphids
aphids
in
also,
Australia.
yeah.
How about that? So pretty good. So Miss Kim, she's using the hose,
She's using the hose.
right, but they just keep coming back.
That's never really worked for me.
Okay.
I think it's just
Good.
they're so tiny, they hold on
Good.
really tight. I still think encourage your good bugs. Praying mantis. You can actually buy in biological, wasp. People don't like wasp, but they're actually
Yes.
very good for
Right.
taking care of bugs. You can use insecticidal
Saddle
soap.
soap, right.
Don't spray that in the hot part of the day. It will burn
Yes.
the plant.
Yes, good. That's true. That is
and
on the label.
That's on the
That's
label.
on the label.
So always read your label.
Yes.
And part of it is if you have a good, strong, healthy plant, they say you won't get bugs. That's not true.
That's not
you
true.
still get bugs.
You're gonna get 'em.
So
You're gonna get aphids.
You're going to get aphids.
That's almost an aphid
Yeah.
for every plant species, it seems like.
That's true.
Right.
So
Yeah.
just kind of keep an eye on them and get rid of what you can. So.
Right. And again, I would say don't encourage too much of that
Too
succulent
much of the
growth
green
with the
growth,
nitrogen
right.
Right.
fertilizer. And then there are some, of course, we talked about insecticidal, so pyrethrins.
Yes.
You know, just came to
Yes.
mind. You know,
Yeah.
something else that's safe as well. So I would go with those safer products. Oils, okay,
Yes.
again, neem oil, horticulture oil can be used as well. So there you have it. So never lost for words, right? Melbourne, Australia. Who knew, right?
Yeah.
Aphids.
Aphids.
They get around, don't they? All right. So here's our next via email. I covered my gardenia for the winter, but when I uncovered it, the leaves were all brown, some green, but mostly brown. I do not know what to do. Can you help? I love gardenia, and this would be the second year that it is in the ground. Do I wait to see if it blooms in the spring before I prune? And this is from Carmen, Hendersonville. Let's Kim. You probably have a gardenia somewhere, don't you?
I do, and it has been hit by the cold.
Sure.
So, and what I usually do is just trim out what looks dead.
Okay.
And then wait for spring to see if it comes on out.
Okay.
And they have surprised me. So she is a little farther north than
Right,
here,
yeah,
but
Hendersonville.
so and you just one of those they call prayer plants. You just
It's the prayer plant. Yeah, Miss Carmen. You just, I always encourage folks, wait to see what happens.
Depends. Wait to see what
Isn't that
happens.
half the battle anyway?
Yeah,
Just kind of
yeah.
wait to see,
Yeah.
what's going to take place, and you'll know what to do the next time.
yeah, we had gardeners have killed many plants, most all of them.
Yeah.
So it just happens sometimes.
Yeah. How should you cover it though?
Well, I don't generally cover mine
You
here,
don't?
but make
Okay.
sure you have mulched it real well, the roots, because you want to encourage good root growth.
Sure.
And in the winter, you want to protect those roots. And the top dieback, a lot of that is just winter damage.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but if you want to cover it, we use frost cloth.
Right.
Don't use plastic.
Okay,
We
good.
use, they call it Remay. I don't know if that's a brand name, but it's a real thin that the airflow still gets through, but it provides some protection.
Okay.
So
And it usually has to come all the way down to the ground.
all the way down
Yeah.
to the ground, yeah, because
Try
the
to tell
wind
people that
whipping
all
up
the way to the
mhm,
ground,
Yeah, and
folks, when you're doing that.
you can put bricks or rocks around to hold it down so
Good.
the wind doesn't blow it off.
Good. Yeah, there are a lot around town here.
Yeah, there are.
Lot
Very
around town.
fragrant, wonderful in the
Beautiful
summer.
plants.
Yeah.
Okay. So there you have it, Miss Carmen. Just wait. It'll come back, I'm sure. Just wait. All right. Here's our next via email. Interesting question here. Can I air layer a branch of a hardwood tree like a paper bark maple? And this is from Lois and Bartlett. So air layer, hardwood tree.
She's that's out of my
Wow.
expertise, but I know you can do that with some plants like azaleas and hydrangeas. You can azaleas are hardwood, but you can lay them down on the ground and
Okay,
or
yeah.
air layer them like that. Now doing a maple, that's not something that sounds like it would be possible, but hey, who knows?
Yeah, I don't think that's possible either. You can give it a try.
Give it a
surely.
try,
Give it a
yeah.
try. Gardeners, we like to
Yeah.
experiment. And I would give it a
Yeah.
try, but I don't typically think that you would
that's
do
the way.
that. Yeah, that you would propagate it.
To propagate it.
I don't think so. Walter?
No, I just can't really see why you would do that.
Okay. So yeah, Lewis. Yeah, just
Yeah, the air layering is when you put moss around it. You make a little nick in it, and then you put moss
Right.
around it, and maybe like wrap it, and then
Right.
hopefully you'll get roots to come out. So I mean, it might work, but I've never heard of anyone doing that. So give it a try and see how
give
it works.
It a try and just see how it works. And if it does work, do let us know.
Yeah,
Lois, for
Oh,
sure.
yes.
yeah.
All right, so here's our next viewer email. 2 weeks ago, I planted a dogwood in prepared clay soil. Prepared clay soil, right? We had lots of rain since I put it in. What can I do to save my new dogwood from soggy soil? And this is from Sue, New Zealand, right? So obviously the dogwood is already in this prepared clay soil, right?
Yes.
What can she do though to save it? Because they've had a lot of rain, just like we've had a lot of rain here.
Maybe try to improve the drainage around the tree. If it's planted in a low spot, she may want to think about moving it.
Yes.
The other thing, which is basically the same thing, is lifting it. Make sure she doesn't have it planted too high. But The other is be patient and maybe it'll quit raining.
That's
Maybe.
pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, improving the drainage is going to be the
the key.
big thing, right? Because if you have a lot of rain, clay soils, we know what that will
Cold
do.
water. Yeah.
Right, it's going to hold a lot of water.
And you get those root rots and
Yes.
all that to deal with. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a tough situation.
Yeah, so we're hoping it's not in a low area. Yeah, you probably have to. Yeah, I mean, you still have a little time. It's just 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, to maybe look for another spot, maybe a higher spot.
Yeah, or a slope.
Or a
where-
slope. Yeah, that's a good
where
idea.
you have good drainage.
That's right. Yeah, but yeah, good drainage is going to be key for that, Ms. Sue. So there you have it. We appreciate that question from New Zealand. And if it makes you feel any better, we've had a lot of soggy soils here as well. All right. All right. So keep that plant out of the water. All right. So Ms. Kim, well, thank you for being here. It's been fun.
Thank you for having me.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. It's time to start working on this year's garden. To get a jump on it, head on over to familyplotgarden.com. We have over 1,000 gardening videos on all sorts of gardening topics. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.